Hello knitters, Barbara Benson here. I'm an independent knitwear designer who also likes to make videos here on my YouTube channel, Watch Barbara Knit. Make sure to check in the description notes below the video where you will find links to all of my online shenanigans, including how to get my patterns to knit up for yourself, how to join the Watch Barbara Knit Facebook group, how to support me on Patreon, and how to get Watch Barbara Knit merchandise, and anything that I talk about in this video, which specifically is going to be this yarn that I'm super excited about. This is a Swatch Lab video, and if you haven't seen a Swatch Lab video, what it is when I take a new to me yarn and put it through its paces. I knit a swatch that has all different types of elements that you might find in knitting, and I see what the yarn likes and what the yarn doesn't like to make me better able to make decisions on what kind of patterns I want to knit with this yarn, and then I share it with you so that you can make those same calls and maybe knit up a swatch yourself. The Swatch Lab swatch is available. I will put a link to it through both my website and Ravelry if you want to duplicate this kind of effort. Not only is this yarn that I have today new to me, this is a brand new yarn, and I'm so excited about this. This is kind of a little dream I've had for Swatch Labs, that at some point I might be able to collaborate with yarn dyers and yarn companies and get my hands on the yarn like shortly before it's released so that I can do the Swatch Lab, and then when this new yarn comes out, I can have the Swatch Lab out there to help all y'all knitters figure out what you want to do with this brand new yarn. So this is the first time I've been able to do this, and I'm really excited about it. This is a brand new yarn from Miss Babs, and it's called Billow. It is a worsted weight alpaca cotton blend with an incredibly unique structure that I'm going to go into greater detail when I get to the top down portion of this program. It is a very interesting yarn structure, and it is an interesting combination of fibers with cotton and alpaca not being something that is as common. So I was very excited to be able to do this Swatch Lab, and I do want to mention that Miss Babs sent me Miss Babs sent me this yarn specifically to do this. Now, they're not paying me to do this. There's nothing like that. It's just they sent me the yarn ahead of time, and I'm excited to have got it so that I can make this video. So let's go to the top down element so you can get all of the information. Here we go. This is the yarn. You can see it right here. I rolled it up into a lovely, lovely cake so that I could knit with it. Let's look at the name tag. Let's see what color it is. This is Valiant Grapes. I asked them to send me, it's always going to be a pretty color, but I asked them to send me something kind of light so that we could definitely see what's going on in this swatch. It comes in all the amazing Miss Babs colors, a bunch of them. I don't know all, but I'm sure it comes in a bunch of them. So the name of this brand new yarn is Billow. As you can see, it is a worsted weight yarn. There is the price tag. I'm going to take my glasses off for a second so I can read it. So it is 51% baby alpaca and 49% Pima cotton. It is 320 yards or 290 meters in approximately 3.5 ounces or 100 grams. The knitting gauge that they are recommending is 4 to 5 stitches per inch on a US 7, 8, or 9. The crochet gauge is 3 to 4 stitches per inch in a US I, J, or K. I'm assuming there's a J in the middle there. Care is hand wash dry, flat, wash with like colors. And as always with hand-dyed yarns, they have the whole, you should probably alternate your skeins if you're concerned about color matching. So that's our tag. Now let's look at our yarn. So the thing that is really, really amazing, cool, different about this yarn, okay, I want you to see first, I'm interrupting myself, how when I'm pulling it away, it's grabby. You can see that as I'm pulling on it, it's kind of like the tiniest and softest of Velcros. It has, if I wish you could feel it, because it has a little grab, and there's like, there's a little pull, and that is the Alpaca. It is super soft, but very fuzzy, and it gets tangled up in itself, which is one of the things that makes it so soft. Now, what you can see here is the Pima cotton component of this yarn is this cage. You can see it, it's white. I don't think I can get it too terrible. There we go. You see, it's like a tiny knitted, it's like an I-cord. It's a little tiny, like spaghetti thickness, even thinner than spaghetti, maybe spaghettini tube. Okay, and that is created with the cotton. And then the alpaca is not actually spun, but it's like blown in. It's like captured inside the structure of that tube. So you can see that we've got like extreme fuzz. And because this alpaca hasn't like been spun to like wrap it around itself and kind of flatten it out, it just makes it super, super fuzzy because it's just floof in a tube. Floof in a tube is what we have going on here. Which means it doesn't really react to a lot of the tests that I normally put yarn to, like the compaction test that I normally do, where you pull it to see how much it squishes down. To see if it's going to bloom. It doesn't really do much of anything, but it is going to bloom because it's so floofy. And these alpaca fibers are not constrained except for by the tube. The tube is what's holding everything together. The other thing is alpaca tends to be very, very high drape. It has a high drape, and it tends to be like almost silky and floppy. This cotton cage is giving it more structure, so I don't think it is going to be as floppy. It gives it a little more body, and I think it might actually make it hold up a little bit better and not stretch out the same way that just a 100% cotton or a 100% alpaca situation. And that has less to do with fiber and more to do with the yarn structure. So it's super, super soft. Absolutely lovely. Isn't it? It's so soft. These are the kind of skeins that I just kind of want to put a couple of googly eyes on it and keep it on my house, like my bedside table, and just pet it. It's just a pet. It doesn't need to mean anything, but it does have to become something because this is Swatch Lab. So I'm gonna, let me put this, get this over here. You know what? Your glasses, you're useless. Here is my Swatch Lab swatch. It's upside down. Let's put it right side up. Not that anyone would know it was upside down or right side up other than me. This is my standard Swatch Lab swatch. Y'all have probably seen it before if you've seen the video. This is the pattern that I work from. It is available on Ravelry and my website if it is something that you would like to use. It has both written and charted instructions, as you can see. And what I do in it is I put it through what I call the paces. So I do a little bit of more elaborate lace, but this is lace that has a rest row. It creates, since I do this, it creates a little bit of a biased fabric, so I can see what happens here. We have a panel, a small panel of stockinette. Then we have a panel of texture. We have a panel of, what are you catching on stuff? I don't know. Pointer Duck is being a little bit grabby today. Maybe she didn't like the trip from Florida. We got our cables, and then across here we have actual true lace where this has lace on both sides of the pattern to see how it's going to react to that. So I knit it up, and I actually did something I do not normally do because, again, this yarn is brand new and I've never knit with anything like this yarn. My glasses were not behaving. So let me click on, here we go. So this is what, and I can't point at it. Well, I can. It's this over here. It's an inset, is what, see what it goes away, bloop, is what the swatch looks like after I bound it off, but before I blocked it. And as you can see, I laid down a measuring tape. It was approximately 8 inches tall. And we're not looking for anything precision, just understanding. So I didn't like do detailed measurements. So we've got this, you can see how it's kind of bunched up. You can see how this top is completely pulled in. You can see how there's not a lot of shape down here. We're not getting our nice points. The stockinette looks pretty much the same. And the texture actually looks kind of cool unblocked. Oop, the duck was getting tall. So that is what it looked like before I blocked. Now obviously this is post blocking, and what I'm going to do here is, so you can see here I'm at about 9.5 for how long it is. So in the blocking process it grew about 1.5 inches. So that gives you an idea of how much it's going to block. But I also want to mention that I decided, I didn't take a picture of it, but when it was completely dry, but still on the pins, so it was blocked, I measured and I blocked it to, here it was 10.5 inches, and here it was 11 inches to this point. So that is what I blocked it to. And as you can see, when I took it off, it was, so I blocked it to 10.5. And after I took the pins off and it relaxed, it was 9.5, 9. What was it again? 9.5. So I blocked it to 10.5, but it relaxed itself back down to about 9.5. So it didn't want to block quite as far as I had pulled it out to. It pulled back. So that, I'm sure someone with better math than me, better math skills, could figure out some sort of like percentage of like what percentage stretch you got and all that kind of stuff. But again, so it didn't want to hold all the way out to what I had blocked it to. And actually, so here, this is the width. So that's around 7 to 8 inches. And the 8 inches is going to be up here. So it didn't, so this is 7.5. So it lost about 1/2 inch there. And so didn't lose as much width as it did length, but that's as much about how I blocked it as it would be about the yarn itself. So that was the blocking situation. So this yarn, this particular fiber content and everything definitely does take a lovely block. It bloomed up, and it is amazingly, look at the fuzz. There's so much fuzz. It is so soft. That is one thing that I can't like communicate effectively to you. Oh, I wonder, you know what? This might not even do anything, but let's see what, because this strand I didn't weave in my ends. Let's see. Oh, look, you can tell. Look at that. When we talk about bloom. So the yarn on the right, the strand on the right is the working yarn just as it comes off the ball. Here, this doesn't, I never thought of doing this. Y'all are coming on this adventure with me. So you can see that the one on the right is definitely thinner than the one on the left. The one on the left is the one that went through the blocking process. So it's soaked in water and wool wash for at least 20 minutes. And this is an example of bloom, that all of that water allowed all of these fibers to like puff up, and you can definitely see that it looks bigger. Hang on. See how the cage kind of opened up as opposed to the one on the right? That's really interesting. You can definitely see it. I can see it. I hope y'all can see me. Let me know in the comments if I am just imagining things. Okay, let's look at the performance. Let's see what Pointer Duck has to say about things. Now, I'm going to be honest. It performed better than I thought it would in this lace. It is more visible than I expected because of the fuzz, because of the bloom. My expectation was that the lace pattern was going to be fairly obscured. Now, we don't have particularly good stitch definition, and it definitely isn't like a highly visible lace, but the lace is there. You can see it. It looks nice. And again, what I was talking about drape, I mean, it definitely has a decent amount of drape, but it's not completely floppy. The bias looks really nice. This fabric, I think, looks lovely. Here it is on the reverse. Now, this is interesting to me. The reverse stockinette is actually more, what word do I want? More messy, less consistent than my knitting typically is. Typically, my reverse stockinette, when I'm knitting stockinette and you look at the back, it has a fairly consistent, I'm not bragging on myself, I just have a very consistent gauge. And if you look here, we've got a little bit of distortion and a little bit. So that tells me that but it's not particularly visible on the front. So it has to do, I think, with, I was using metal needles. By the way, I knit this swatch with size 8 needles like this. They're very pointy. These are the Chaogus. In retrospect, I think a wooden needle might have been a better choice. Also, something with less of a point on it. It's just that this is my preferred needle and it's what I had handy, and I didn't feel like digging out wooden needles. I probably should have sucked it up and dug a little bit harder. But it's just after the move and I didn't know where they were. So I think that I was having a little bit of a challenge keeping nice even gauge and tension on my stockinette because I was using the slippery needles. But it's not going to be as visible here in the lace because there's not these wide swaths. And that same thing when you get up into here. When you get up into the stockinette, these like visible ladders and things like that, that is not something that I typically run into with stockinette knitting. But that's because I knit fairly tight and I kind of bully the yarn. And I think I was being a little more gentle with this because it just feels lighter in my hand. But again, if you look, I almost, like here, you can see where that row out, it's not technically a row out, but where that is happening. But this row almost looks like a row out. So it's a combination of my knitting and the tools I used. So just being aware that you might need to be a little bit more mindful about your tension with the stockinette because it is slippery, if you're, or switch to a more grabby needle. But the stockinette does look beautiful. You know, it's the yarn, but also Miss Bab's beautiful tonal colorways just bring life to even just basic stockinette. I really liked how it showed up in the texture, but I think I would definitely stick with a fairly simple texture pattern because the fuzz really obscures a lot of the stitches. And if you got into anything particularly intricate, then you definitely are going to run into that it's not going to be totally visible because of the fuzz. The fuzz is bringing a whole lot to the party. It's like the main feature, I would say, of this yarn. But because we have that fuzz, it's going to limit the visibility of intricate work. And this is reversible, but I think this texture looks amazing. So I think it works really well with simple knit purl textures. This is moss stitch. Moving right along to our cables. This is the 1/1. This is 1/1 right, and this is 1/1 left. And then as we go up, so it's 1/1 and then a purl row, and then a knit row, then a purl row. So there's the cable happens one on one. So it's a 4 row repeat. The cable happens on one. So it's 4 rows. And then up here, I move into doing the cable on every right side row just to see what would happen. And typically the only yarns that can really like hold this type of cable is going to be a really bouncy, really round, really high stitch definition yarn. And as you can see, this is none of those things. So I don't see any point in doing that kind of detail in this yarn. I think the 1/1s are fine. You can't really see the cable per se. It's not very visible, but the shape it's creating is really nice. Then we get our 2/2s, and then our cable starts jumping out. And again, it's not ideal cable yarn. You can see it's pretty flat. It doesn't have any of that height that people typically like in cables, but that's to be expected from both the alpaca and the cotton. Neither of those. The tube is going to compact. It's going to turn into an oval. So this is, but it still looks good. And that's the purpose of these videos, is for you to see what it's going to look like. So if you make this choice, you have the appropriate expectations. I wouldn't do like a huge amount of all over cable work with this, but detail cables and the bigger ones are going to be really nice. You've got your channels in between. I'm going to show you the back, and you can see how sloppy those pearls look from the other side. This looks great. This not so much. And then this pretty much did almost exactly what I expected from. Neither the alpaca or the cotton has the kind of ability to hold this is just knit two together yarn over on both sides. Because of the fuzz, because of the fibers, it's really not, it's not holding this. I don't feel that this is really, I mean, you could do it, you could use it for some detailings, but really you're doing it for the texture and maybe to open it up much. Your lace is not, because of the fuzz and everything. I don't think your lace is going to be the star of the show, but as a side character, I think that it could be fun. You know, I blocked it fairly aggressively like this, and then you can see how that opens it back up. But I think a substantial chunk of that 1/2 inch to 1 inch that I lost once I took it off the needles is simply this pulling itself back in, because this yarn does not want to hold that really tight block, because you can see it's open, and then what it wants to be is this more soft, fuzzy kind of situation, which I could see this being nice. I mean, oh, you know what? This would be gorgeous. This would be gorgeous like as a hem on like a wrist or a flutter sleeve or around the bottom of something. I mean, it could definitely be pretty and soft, but it's not lace the way that like if it was in silk or 100% wool, something is going to hold crisp and the lace is there. It's just a different way to show off the yarn. And again, to lighten it up, because alpaca is very, very high insulation factor. So, so putting some air holes in it might be good if you don't want to be super, super, super warm, if you know what I mean. So there we go. That, say hello to Pointer Duck. Say goodbye to Pointer Duck. That is the swatch. This is the yarn. This is the label. And I'll see you in a sec. I hope that you found this new yarn as intriguing as I did. The cotton cage tube thing with the alpaca blown into it is a very different structure that I haven't knit with before. I thoroughly enjoyed knitting with it, and I enjoy thinking about the cool fuzzy stuff that I might be able to do with this yarn. Now, in the past, people have asked me to include in these Swatch Lab videos suggestions for patterns that you might be able to use this yarn for. And since it's a brand new yarn, this is, I mean, there really aren't patterns. I'm sure that Babs will be releasing patterns about it, but I looked through my repertoire and I found at least 2 patterns that I think would work really well with this yarn. So the first one is this, the Winding Paths Headband. This is the very first pattern that I ever had accepted into a magazine, and you can see this picture. This is my head, and we just went outside and I'm standing on my deck, and this is to give you this detail. And so if we go back to the analysis, you can see we've got these smaller cables and then these substantially larger cables and the reverse stockinette. So I think with the reverse stockinette, we're going to have enough of definition between the foreground and the background for the cables to be worthwhile, for you to be able to work them and them not disappear. And a lot of it has to do that the original yarn that I used for this pattern is a fuzzy yarn. Now I'm going to go over here and look at the details because so this pattern was released in 2011. 2011 is the year I started designing. So as I said, this is a very, very early pattern of mine. Now, the yarn it calls for, if you go over to my website or Ravelry, it says Aran weight yarn. So it's calling for a heavier yarn. And that is what I knit it in. But this is a worsted weight yarn. And the little thingamajigger says that it is US gauge 7 to 9. And I am asking for a size 8 needle in this pattern. So I think it will still work. And if you go and you look at the yarn ideas from other people who have made it, they have made it in Aran, they have made it in DK, they have made it in, so it's flexible. It's not something that really needs to like fit. And it uses a size 8 and it calls for like 98 yards. So you can make like at least 3 out of this. And I want to go to the reason why I'm showing you this picture, which is just one I took and you know, not that great, as you can tell, is because this, it was in a magazine, and I gotta say the pictures in the magazine were not my favorite. It was a time period where magazines were going through this moody phase where they were taking these really, really moody atmospheric photos, and I didn't like it when they were doing it. I'm glad they got away from it because it's meant to be like homey, and I understand that these kind of things go through trends, but I felt they were just dark and didn't let you see. So the pictures from this magazine, not helpful. But I wanted to show you this one because this is one of the selling points of this headband, is that it's knit like you cast it on and it's knit back and forth like this, and it gets bigger and then runs and then tapers, and then there's some garter, and you put a button on it. So you can take the headband on and off without sliding it over your head, which causes me problems because my hair's so big. But I also know that some people, the button would cause problems. So you could just sew it together if you wanted to. So that is the Winding Paths headband. And I definitely think it would work. As you can, let's go back. So this is the more purple one, which this is like the purple pink. And then this is the one I sent them, which was a blue one. So I just think it would work well. And then a second pattern is this one. This is Oscillare, and it calls for 350 to 400 yards of a decay weight yarn. But again, it calls for a US size 6 and a US size 4. The 4 is going to be the ribbing at the bottom and the top of it, and the rest of it's in a 6. So considering this says 7 to 9, I think we're going to be okay, just because this is a little heavier, but it's such an interesting structure. The other thing is I need to get another color of this, because I really think it's going to make for very interesting color work. It's not going to make for like detailed color work because the fuzz is going to kind of blur the edges of those colors, but I think it's going to be a softened color work that looks really, really nice. And I need to get another color so I can play with it. I really think it would look great in this pattern. It's going to make this pattern, the original yarn actually had, it was an alpaca wool blend. So this is alpaca cotton, so it's going to be lighter. It's probably going to, see how it's standing up, it's probably going to collapse a little bit more because it's not going to have as much body. It'll be lighter, but still just as warm because of the alpaca. You're going to need 2 colors, and let me see. It is, I am sure no surprise to anyone, that it is mosaic style color work. So it's just slip and stitches. It's knit and stripes and slip and stitches, and it makes that fun oscillating pattern. I'm gonna here is what the pattern really looks like. This is lovely, lovely Fatima, who modeled it for me in Atlanta, because this one is from 2017, right before I moved to Florida. And it is, let me see the yarn ideas on it. People have used sport on it, they've used worsted on it. So it's, again, not terribly fitted, pretty flexible when it comes down to things. So I think that Babs has many, many beautiful colors. Having something that is a soft contrast, like what the colors I picked here, this gray and this pink, for this purple, like if I were to pick another color with this, I would be tempted to do a gray, but I don't know, maybe a dark, no, that's not going to work. Maybe a darker purple, just keeping it monochromatic, could be really cool. Or like a blue might be interesting. It could go with just about anything. I don't know. I think that is one of my favorite parts of color work, is thinking about all of the different color possibilities that you can do. So let's go back. So those are the two patterns of mine. I will link them in the description notes below. The Winding Paths headband and Oscillare, either of those I think would work really nice in this yarn Billow. So I hope you enjoyed this Swatch Lab. I had a lot of fun with it because it was a really, really intriguing yarn structure, and fiber and everything about it was really cool. But I definitely, if I knit something else, I will be putting the effort into digging out a blunter wooden needle, because the slippery with all the fuzzy was a little bit of a challenge. So if you like this video, please give it the thumbs up, click that like button, and if you would like to be notified whenever I upload a new video, please subscribe to my channel and select notifications. Thank you very much.